Hello, welcome into the latest edition of the SU Flyer podcast here on the campus of Salisbury University. I'm Chris Mackowiak, alongside me Zach Gillen, back for another week highlighting the day that was and the Saturday action here at Salisbury University with the athletics over on East Campus. Just two home games this week with men's soccer and women's soccer in action. Women's soccer hosting the Catholic University of America Cardinals, and Misericordia University Cougars coming to town to face the men's soccer squad. Great to be back with you here. Today is September 17th as we look ahead to a week that will not see many sports here on the campus of Salisbury University. Just field hockey at home on Wednesday night against Johns Hopkins. With that, we'll get going right away with some women's soccer action from Saturday. And all you can really say about this one, Zach, is, the offenses came alive for sure.
Yeah, both teams scoring 4 goals. It was definitely a bit of a heartbreak on the women's side, that 5-4 loss versus Catholic. Offensive problems have really been plaguing both teams essentially throughout the season. A lot of 1-0 losses. And for Salisbury, that offense really able to get things going. They had 4 goals on 4 shots at one point. The offensive explosion was certainly there. A lot of great passes, great corner kick from Lydia Narum, able to hit Kayla Homeyer for her first career goal. A lot of first goals of the season for the Seagulls on the women's side. And for the men's side, able to get that really big win against Misericordia. Dolph Hegovic, couple of goals for him, his first goals of the season. So it's a step in the right direction for the men's team as CAC plays coming down to the wire soon. And for the women's side, another heartbreaking loss, but certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah, step in the right direction. Best way to put it, really, for two teams that have struggled on offense, both putting up 4 goals on the day. And unfortunately, 4 wasn't enough for the women's soccer team. You got to call that one as a color commentator on the Seagulls Sports Network. What did you see out there from the team? Looked like they were really engaging in the formation. They were running. They were playing well early, just they couldn't hold that lead at the end.
I think it was certainly the chemistry on offense. That was a crazy game to watch, real back and forth. Both offenses were on a roll in Salisbury. They weren't able to get a whole lot of opportunities at the net, only 8 shots compared to Catholic's 18. But when they were able to get those opportunities, they were able to score. And just the chemistry with the team, with the beautiful passing, that's something I haven't seen, especially in that win versus Washington College earlier this season. It was a 3-1 win, but it was a little sloppy from both teams. But a 5-4 game, you don't see that often in soccer. But I was really impressed with Salisbury's offense, with the passes, the through balls. They were able to attack the Catholic defensive unit, and the defense gonna have to clean up a few things there. But it was a fantastic showing by Salisbury, or their offense.
And just looking at the goal scorers, a brace for Ruthie Lucas, a name we're all familiar with now, getting her 13th and 14th career goals here. Among the first you mentioned, getting her first and second goals here in 2017, so good to be getting her going. Now, you look at the order of the goals in this game. Salisbury up 4-2 after a goal just 2 minutes into the second half, but then the Cardinals, over the course of 27 minutes, score 3 goals to get back up on top. Did you notice anything that maybe changed out there for the Salisbury squad that was really pounding the ball, putting the pressure on offensively? Did they sit back maybe a little bit too much in that second half?
Yeah, but before I go into that, how about the day by Ruthie Lucas? As you mentioned, she looked fantastic out there. Showed absolutely zero signs of injury from earlier on this season. She absolutely used her speed to get past the Catholic defenders, and a beautiful chip shot right over Christina Payro, the Catholic goalie, who is the landmark defensive player of the league. So just want to give a shout out to Ruthie Lucas and the Salisbury offense. But in that second half, it was all Catholic, and Salisbury just wasn't able to attack that defensive unit like they had been able to in that first half, and it just seemed like that Catholic offense was wearing and tearing on that Seagull defense, and a lot of tired legs at the very end. Coach Lloyd shifting around his defense, getting a lot of new substitutions in, but anytime you have a team that averages 19 shots per game, they're going to get them eventually. But just too many opportunities allowed by the Seagulls, definitely gassed at the end of that game. And it certainly showed with Catholic able to get 3 consecutive goals when they mattered the most.
And most fans will look at this scoreline, see 5-4. No, it was a big offensive game, but you look at these shot counts. You mentioned Catholic averaging so many shots per game, 18 on the board for the Cardinals, just 8 for the Seagulls. And Catholic They were going strong the entire game. 9 shots in both the first and second halves.
Yeah, and it's a credit to their offense. Elizabeth Johnson, our player to watch earlier in that game during the broadcast, and she had a fantastic game. 2 goals, now 6 on the season, 6 in 6 games. She was the landmark offensive player of the week for the week of September 5th, and it's just they had a phenomenal offense with a lot of freshmen and sophomores coming into the game. They had 8 different players score goals, and they were able to. They were up. I think had a 4-1 record, but they had all their wins come as shutouts. But credit that Salisbury offense to be able to put up a 4 spot. So, and with Catholic, their only loss coming into the season was a 6-1 loss to Christopher Newport. So some CAC opponents making real challenges for this Catholic team. But hats off to them and 5-1 start.
Yeah, for sure. And talking a little bit more about this game. After the game, you got to be there for a very authentic interview with head coach Kwame Lloyd, who kind of went into detail that this is kind of another bump in the road, but he knows that this women's soccer team can push forward, overcome the adversity. But you could get a sense for how he feels about this team and the family atmosphere of this squad. That interview, of course, posted the video of it posted with the recap here online at thesuflyer.com if anyone wants to check it out.
Yeah, and you and me, Chris, have been around here for a while. We've interviewed basically every coach here, all the players, and that was one of the best interviews I've ever had. Like, we had to wait 15 minutes. The post-game meeting between Coach Lloyd and his players, it took a long time, and you expected it to be a real deflating loss. You expected him to maybe say, "Hey, we'll go back to the drawing board," but he was so proud of his team, and he said, that the reason he gets up every day is to be with his players. So it was really authentic interview, really emotional interview out of him, and certainly one of the best ones I've ever seen.
Yeah, and a real testament to the leader of this women's soccer squad, Coach Kwame Lloyd, now definitely a couple of many years under his belt here. The team, women's soccer team this season starting 1-6 now, 4 straight losses on the board, but at the same time you have to take the good with the bad. Great offense. They haven't put up this many goals since their win over Wesley College towards the end of 2016. So good to see that and that good chemistry on the offensive side. Women's soccer will go at Rutgers Newark on the 19th, that being Tuesday. Then they'll start CAC play at Southern Virginia on Saturday, and then 2 more matches on the road, Bridgewater and Mary Washington. So and followed by St. Mary's, So you look at this, they have a 4-game losing streak, and man, Zach, they're headed into a hotbed here, just putting away the skill level of these teams. 5 games on the road before they get a 4-game set here back at home.
Yeah, and for Salisbury, a bit of a deflating loss after that 5-4 loss against Catholic, but when we talk to Coach Lloyd, maybe use a little bit of momentum, especially going with this huge road trip, Rutgers Newark, as you said, and then Southern Virginia really starting that crucial CAC slate. And even with a 1-6 record, there's a chance for Salisbury to get back into that CAC mix and certainly get to the playoffs.
Yeah, we're seeing good things from the team, looking to get back to the CAC tournament. Now we'll bounce over to men's soccer and 4 goals for men's soccer, too. It's really incredible the offense we saw from both of these Salisbury teams, and all 4 of those goals, Zach, occurring in the second half for Salisbury and also over the course of just 25 minutes. Very impressive things. They tried out a new formation. They're working with a 3-6-1 now. The Coach Hargrove really says is going to help out the skill level of the team and how they flow across the midfield. And there were not really any blemishes I saw out there. That defensive line was exceptional. Carrington, Kramer, and also Ivan in the back line, and then Colby fell right in front of them as a defensive midfielder. They were excellent. They stayed out there through the storm, and despite 9 shots from Misericordia, they stood tall. At the same time, you have to take this with a grain of salt. Misericordia only 1 goal on the season entering the game. Of course, they got shut out. And this one, Brookhart, his second clean sheet of the season. Of course, he has started, the JUCO transfer has started all 7 games for Salisbury. But a lot of good to take from this game, especially considering Dolph Hegovich getting on the board, getting some confidence under his step.
Yeah, and this is an offense that had been struggling. A lot of frustrating 1-0 losses, especially starting the season. And they had that heartbreaking loss in double overtime at Washington College for their annual derby at the Shore. A really tough matchup. They had a 2-1 lead, but unable to come with the victory. And just credit to the offense, the new formation there. The offense looked really solid, especially in that second half. A little bit feeling each other out in the first half. Not a lot going, a tied 0-0, but all 4 goals coming in that second half. And so we saw a lot of offense from both sides of the Seagull Soccer Stadium, and Dolph Hegovic finally getting on the board, his first and second goal of the season. And just credit to Coach Hargrove with sticking with his team and able to pull out a really important W right before the CAC play.
Yeah, Zach Graff and Juki have been the ones at the top of that Salisbury formation, but Dolph Hegovic was the leading goal scorer last season with 6 goals, 3 assists on the board. Only player to get all conference honors in the Capital Athletic Conference. As Zach mentioned, started with the first 2 goals of the day after Zach put on some pressure on this Misericordia back line. He capitalized on their mistakes as they kind of got a little lazy in that second half, passing the ball around a bit slow.
Yeah, for Salisbury, they were able to move that ball around, and Pegovic able to get those 2 big goals, and Salisbury just a really big win, 4 goals in that second half, and it's going to be really important, especially going now on the road at Stevenson and also at Southern Virginia. Both teams going to be there soon, and right before they come back home for Catholic, so a really big momentum boost for Salisbury, able to get their first home win of the season.
Yeah, Ryan Spading getting the 3rd goal in the 74th minute, his first of the season. Another one of those key sophomore midfielders from that freshman class of last year. Stephen White and Kevin Erickson combining for the final goal of the game in what you can consider garbage time in the 88th minute when it's 3-0 already in the game. But for Salisbury, Zach, you mentioned it, first win at home this season and the most goals scored in a game all season. And that has to feel good for a squad that was really having a tough time getting the ball in the back of the net, considering they had, entering this game, 4 matches where they had at least 13 shots. This one they had 16, and 4 of those in the back of the net.
Certainly help on the offensive side when you're able to outshoot your opponent. Salisbury had that edge 16-9 and a couple of tough matchups in overtime earlier this season, but a big home win in front of the home supporters. You and I both had the pleasure of being there, and it was a raucous crowd all around this new and beautiful Seagull Soccer Stadium. So it was a big win for Salisbury. Misericordia winless on the season, but a big 4-0 statement win right before CAC play.
Yeah, and for Salisbury, recap 2-5 for the men's soccer squad on the schedule. Of course, they started the season, first 5 games all 1-0 results, and only 1 going the way of the Seagulls. So the team has been there. The defense is there, we saw over the last few years, but the offense needed to get going. This may be the boost that they needed. They'll go on the road for 2 matches coming up, Wednesday and Saturday at Stevenson, out of conference against the MAC opponent, former CAC opponent, but then going at Southern Virginia to start the conference play opposite the women's team next Saturday. They'll be back at home with Zach and I on the call for the Catholic University of America team now, the men's team coming to town. That'll be on the 27th on the Seagull Sports Network. After that, we get deep into conference play. But the good thing for men's soccer is they don't have to deal with that gauntlet that is coming at the women's soccer team. They'll have home games here or there and a road game here or there.
Yeah, and this is a team that has performed really well at home now, that big 4-0 win. And for Salisbury, as you mentioned it, the women's side has to go with 4 consecutive road matchups, and for Salisbury, they'll get a bit of a break here to stay at home and an opportunity to improve themselves in CAC play as the games matter a little bit more.
Now with that, we'll go take a brief look at the away games so far. I'll just read the scores right here, then we'll get into it. Field hockey hit the road to face a Cabrini squad that won the CSAC championship last season on an easy 3-0 win for Salisbury. Women's volleyball went 1-on-1 on the day, losing to Cabrini at the Newman Knights Invitational up in Aston, PA, 3-2. And then they swept Haverford to end the day 3-0 in that tournament. And over to football now for the final team match of the day. Salisbury defeating Kane College in a tough battle, 21-13. Salisbury football team getting the win. They moved to 2-1 on the season. For the UMass Dartmouth Invitational for cross country, the men finishing third, the women finishing sixth as team squads as we round out the Saturday that was. Zach, what really stood out to you from these other matchups here from yesterday?
Oh, looking at the football side, Salisbury able to get that gritty 21-13 win against Kane, and we got the chance to talk with Coach Wood in that coach's luncheon on Thursday, and a little bit of not indecision from him, but angst, a little bit nervous for that game against Kane. He certainly didn't know what to expect because we got to talk to him, and he was saying how Kane. They returned 9 starters on offense, so he just had a little bit of angst there where he was wondering how is his team going to do, and it was a gritty win, and anytime you get an opponent on the road in the NJAC, which is such a tough conference, and Salisbury able to sneak out with a 21-13 win, but how about the play of Brandon Lewis at quarterback? Struggled a little bit against William Patterson, but 9 for 12, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 52-yard pass to Josh McClain for a touchdown. So had a little bit of a struggles early on this season, but a fantastic showing from him.
Yeah, good game all around for football. It's the type of win they needed when your coach is kind of worried about the matchup. It was good to see that for sure, and that a key win in the NJAC and across the NJAC. CNU getting a huge win, 33-30 over Frostburg State. That was in the top 25. So we'll see how that plays things out. But CNU certainly rising this season, a team to watch for in the NJAC. They'll come to Salisbury to face the football team on homecoming, actually, October 7th, coming up in a few weeks. Wesley got the big win over TCNJ also this weekend in the NJAC. Now, looking at the volleyball matches, Zach, once again, we have the known commodities of the volleyball team. Venturelli having a big day, per the usual, taking over the reins from Stouffer from a year ago. And volleyball, unfortunately, lost the set 3-2. But hey, this team, pretty good record so far this season. 10-2 overall. Had some tough opponents in there so far, but nothing against the team. A couple people on this campus had them kind of written off the season. Stouffer's leaving. They had a lot of talent leaving, but the youth on this squad has rallied around. They have great chemistry out there, and they are proving the doubters wrong here in 2017.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic start. Credit Coach Turco receiving his 100th win a couple weeks ago, but really getting his team ready for this season. As you said, not a lot of people expected them to be or have a start this great to start off the season with Katie Stouffer gone, a Shannon Russell, really important defensive specialist for the team, but credit on Nicole Venturelli for stepping up, really coming into her own on that outside hitter role. We knew what she was capable of when she complemented Katie Stouffer really well, really giving a dynamic feel to the Salisbury offense, but she's been really fantastic so far this season. 12 kills against Haverford and a lot of kills against Cabrini. A really tough match, or tough loss to Cabrini. Dropped in 5 sets. That really a crucial 5th set, dropped it 16-14, but it's been a fantastic start for Salisbury and want to get back into that upper echelon to face a Mary Washington or a Christopher Newport later in CAC play.
Now looking at field hockey, another Cabrini matchup for the Seagulls, and much of the same, getting the shutout. The only game this season where they didn't get a shutout over their opponent was the Messiah game. But other than that, the defense has been fantastic. And oh, look, it's Ariel Johnston once again getting another goal. And she's been so strong on those penalty corners this season. And yes, it wasn't a penalty corner, 33rd minute of the game. And also Wilkinson and Lemansky getting goals, 2 on the day.
Yeah, and for Salisbury, credit that defense also. Tressie Windsor not able to face a lot of shots, 0 saves for the Seagulls in that shutout, so not a lot of work for Tressie Windsor, but I'm sure she'll take it. And you're pointing out goals scored by Emily Lemansky, Ariel Johnson, and Natalie Wilkinson. Natalie Wilkinson, yet another goal. We saw her score against Messiah College, has for the Seagulls only goal of that game. But as you said, Ariel Johnson, not really an imposing threat at around 5'4", but she can certainly bully defenders, push them around, and she absolutely shoots lasers. We saw that penalty shot against Washington College. She put a bullet into the back of the cage. But another big win for Salisbury. They defeated Cabrini 6-0 last season, but a big 3-0 win for the Seagulls against a Cabrini team that made the NCAA tournament last year in a tough out-of-conference matchup on the road, and we see the Seagulls are able to hang with the best of the best.
So, Zach, after we went through all these matchups now, any preview for the fans out there on the Players of the Week here for SU Seagulls?
Well, for that Players of the Week, the new column that we were starting to write, we're going to stick to the on-campus sporting events here at the Seagull Soccer Complex. 2 great games and a couple of faces that we've mentioned earlier, but certainly check that out, and 2 solid performances on the men's and women's side.
With that, we'll move towards signing off this podcast. First, wanted to promote some of the content we had go up in the past week or two here on the SUFlyer.com. We have a new writer with us, Kyle Russell, who did an excellent job, took on a double header to write those 2 stories late into Saturday night, got them to me, so credit to him, and also our new photographers who have been fantastic out there getting us new looks at the different venues. We also are trying something new, putting up post-game interviews on the recaps, getting you guys a chance to look at the players, hear their own voice and everything with it, away from the quotes we choose to put in the articles. So we've added those to recaps, and we should keep doing that. So we have 2 recaps up from yesterday, men's soccer and women's soccer, obviously, so check those out. From the previous week, the Salisbury field hockey recap with photo galleries and all the sorts, and from last Wednesday's win over Washington College. Also, a long project that's taken me 3 weeks to get done. The CAC Chamberlain coaching tree, that article is up, and a big thank you out to the Salisbury field hockey team and SU Seagulls for helping promote that article. A lot of work in there, and interviewed coaches from York, Mary Washington, and St. Mary's to get that done, and really shows the strength of the Seagull Nation and family, and from Dawn Chamberlain and the Salisbury field hockey team and program. So check that out. It's a really good read, a lengthy one, but it's well worth it, and it was well worth the time I put into it for sure. With that, I'll let Zach have the final thoughts here. Anything you want to take away from the week that was, or headed into the next week?
It was a fantastic weekend for the Seagulls. Just to let everybody know, weekend recap and players of the week will be up rather later tonight or Monday morning. But it was a big week for the Seagulls. Almost every team able to come out with a win, except that heartbreaking loss for the women's side. But credit them, 4 goals against a really tough opponent in Catholic. So a little bit of momentum trying to move forward with a couple tough road matchups ahead of them, but this is what we see out of Salisbury, a power program. Most of their programs able to come away with wins this weekend, so a great weekend for the Seagulls, and a little bit of a quiet weekend coming up until me and you have to run 100 miles an hour during homecoming weekend.
Yeah, that'll be fun, but it is good to get a few weeks off here, at least a little bit lighter. We won't be back working with the announcing side of things until the 27th for the Catholic game against men's soccer. But for the week ahead, Zach and I will be out at field hockey Wednesday night against Johns Hopkins, getting some video done and a recap written. So check that out coming Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Other than that, always look back at the sports page on the SUFlyer.com. Follow us on Twitter at SUFlyer, and also we're on Facebook, getting that back and active at the Flyer Facebook page. Also, we're on Instagram. As always, thanks everyone for watching. Go Goals! I'm Chris Mackowiak, sports editor of the Flyer, and alongside me, sports reporter of the Flyer, Zach Gilland. Have a great week, everyone. We'll be back next Sunday.